Hi, you guys. Welcome back to C Squad Cinema, a compendium for physical media, film reviews, rambles, and other nerdy movie talk. Well, Merry Christmas. It's the holiday season. It's my absolute favorite time of year, and it's the time of year when a lot of YouTube channels that talk about movies or physical media are going to be giving you their top 5 or top 10 lists of the best, most definitive Christmas films of all time. But rather than do that, I'm going to do something just a little bit different, just a little more unconventional than your average video giving you a list of their favorite Christmas films. I am going to talk about Christmas films, but today we are going to have a Kino Lorber Christmas. And what I mean by that is I'm going to talk about 5 films that are unconventional Christmas films in that they take place at Christmas time, but they're not necessarily about Christmas. These films just have a nice holiday ambiance, and I often find myself revisiting them around Christmas time. Now, these films are in no particular order, but they all have been released through the Kino Lorber label. So if you like what I have to say about these, maybe think about picking up a copy. I don't know that you'll be able to get slipcases anymore, but so to start things off, and again, these are in no particular order, but we have 3 Days of the Condor. This is an absolutely incredible spy thriller from Sidney Pollack, who brought us The Firm or The Interpreter from 2005. And unfortunately, Sidney Pollack is no longer with us, and that's a shame because he's made some really incredible feature films, and my favorite of all of them is 3 Days of the Condor. This is an absolutely tight, suspenseful thriller starring Robert Redford from 1975. He plays a CIA agent who's working out of this small field office in New York, and he steps away to run some errands during his lunch break, and when he comes back, his entire office has been massacred by this unknown assailant. Of course, we see that happen in the events of the movie, but he doesn't. And before he knows it, he's, of course, blamed for what's happened at the office there. And then he's on the run, trying to figure out who's behind the massacre and also to clear his name from being accused of this horrible crime. This is a great feature film, and what you'll notice very quickly as soon as it steps out of that office setting is that it's Christmas time in New York. So he's going into shops, and you see Christmas ambiance in the background. You've got Christmas tunes playing over the speakers in the various locations that he visits. And while nothing in the plot really has anything to do with Christmas itself, it's just a fun little circumstance that this happens to be playing out over the holiday season. And you really get that sense throughout the film. This has really good cinematography. You know, the 70s is my favorite decade for cinema as far as the look of film, and 3 Days of the Condor holds up really well. This looks really great on 4K, and it's a very, very fun thriller. You need to check it out. Now, next up, also in the spy thriller vein, is Ronin from 1998. This is the thriller from Jonathan Frankenheimer, who's also produced some really great action masterpieces during his time. This stars Robert De Niro, Jean Reno from Leon the Professional, and everybody's favorite character actor that dies in almost everything, Sean Bean. Yeah, Ronin is a really fun ride. It's about this team of strangers that are basically planning a heist for this suitcase. And just like in every good spy thriller, things go wrong. This is also just another really suspenseful film. There's great action. There's an amazing car chase sequence in this film, and it's got some really great European locations. And this also takes place at Christmas time. And again, nothing specific about Christmas has any real effect on the plot, but there's a couple conversations between like Jean Reno asking Robert De Niro what he wants Santa to bring him or something to that effect. And it's just a really great action movie to begin with. It leaves a lot of questions for us as the audience because our first introduction to these characters is that they're all strangers. They're strangers to us. The plot doesn't reveal a whole lot about their past lives, but we get a sense of these personalities that are sort of scheming to sort of come out of this heist on top. Everybody's kind of in it for themselves, and you get the sense that any one of these people would sell the others down the river if it meant coming away with a good payday and being alive at the end. But bottom line, Ronin is a really great action film to watch during Christmas time. And keeping things over on the other side of the pond, we've got David Cronenberg's Eastern Promises from 2007. Now, this came out just a couple of years after A History of Violence and also stars Viggo Mortensen. And I think the people maybe came away from Eastern Promises disappointed that it wasn't more like A History of Violence. And while both films sort of play with the idea of the effect of violence on the human condition, they approach it from very different sensibilities. And Eastern Promises is a more contemplative feature. It's also dealing with somebody who's got a history of violence, but where he's at in his life now is very different from his character in A History of Violence. This really plays with the idea of family and how violence affects the legacy of those that come after us. So the plot of Eastern Promises follows a midwife played by Naomi Watts, and basically there's a baby featured in here, and the origins of the child sort of have implications for this mafia family that Viggo Mortensen's character is a part of, or at least that's what we initially believe at the beginning of the film. So there's also some plot twists in here that I don't want to spoil. So if you watch this, go into this with tempered expectations. If you like things that don't just lay out every plot element for you, you're somebody who likes good writing that really takes a more introspective approach to themes like violence and, kind of the dark side of the human condition, then the Eastern Promises is a very good film for that. Also takes place at Christmas time. There's very cold, wintry vibes throughout this thing. You see the Christmas ambiance in the background with lights and things like that. There's a few mentions of Christmas because some of the characters and families are doing things to celebrate the holiday. And it's really about the turmoil that some of these secrets are going to have for several of these characters. And so to contrast that with the most hopeful time of the year, it makes for a really compelling story. In many ways, I think this is a better film than A History of Violence, but it's got a very different pace. So as long as you can tolerate that, I think you'll really get some enjoyment out of one of David Cronenberg's best films. Now, to change up the mood a little bit, we've got In Bruges. This is an absolute riot of a film from 2008, which comes to us from director Martin McDonagh, who did Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri just a few years ago, and then did the more recent The Banshees of Inisherin, also starring Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. That film reteamed them after they co-starred in this together. And both of the films do a really great job of balancing a more serious, somber tone with some really comedic elements that you just cannot help but laugh out loud. So in the film, Colin Farrell, who gets to just be unapologetically Irish, plays a hitman who basically screws up on a job really bad. And so his character Ray gets sent to Bruges in Belgium with his buddy Ken, played by Brendan Gleeson, by their boss, who is played by the absolutely sinister and amazing Voldemort himself, Ralph Fiennes. And they get to Bruges. It's Christmas time. Colin Farrell really doesn't want to be there. He's got all these really funny lines about, hating the village and hating the whole, ambiance of the place. Doesn't really know what to do. He's bored and he wants to go out and kind of explore the nightlife and hit the pubs and get into all these shenanigans. He gets involved with some people that are there filming this movie as they're just waiting for further instruction from the boss. And of course, you contrast that with Brendan Gleeson, who brings this really just dad-like vibe and, really wants them to just buckle down and lay low until they're told what they're going to do. And just their whole interplay is just comedic brilliance. You really have to have a European sense of humor to understand some of the jokes in here. This is not politically correct by any means, nor should it be. I mean, it's just a film that has a little bit of a lighthearted approach toward very serious subject matter a little bit of the time, but it's shot in this absolutely gorgeous location. The Christmas vibes on this are fantastic. In Bruges is just one of the better films from the early 2000 to 2010 era. I think In Bruges is endlessly entertaining. I can watch this numerous times throughout the year and never get bored of it. It's very quotable, but you have to be in the right friend group to be able to quote it. But it's really great. It takes place at Christmas time. Give it a watch. And lastly, we have the absolute classic Murder on the Orient Express from 1974 from director Sidney Lumet. This stars Albert Finney in one of his career best performances. And what more can you say about Murder on the Orient Express? You know, there's been a remake that Kenneth Branagh did, also a pretty fun film, but for my money, it's all about the original. And at the time, again, cast of thousands here. This takes place on a train, the Orient Express, in December. And yeah, it just has those Christmas vibes. You know, the train gets stuck because they got to wait for some snow to be plowed, and they're all stuck on the tracks while this murder investigation is happening. And Albert Finney is trying to figure that out and interviewing all the suspects and slowly unveiling the whole scope of the entire plot. It's an awesome whodunit. It's a great murder mystery, kind of in the vein of Clue. You know, it has that same sort of vibe to it, just this light-hearted approach. You know, it doesn't take things too seriously, but it's very compelling. You're just watching some actors just give it their all. You know, you got Anthony Perkins in here doing some fine work outside of his Psycho role, and it's just a lot of fun. And I love watching this film at Christmas time because it takes place in December. So while Christmas, again, doesn't really affect the plot at all, it's just a good thing to watch when it's snowy outside and you're sitting by the fireplace with your family. So there you have it, you guys. That is my Kino Lorber Christmas for you. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas from my family to yours. Thank you for being here. I hope that as we get into the new year, I'm going to expand this channel. My goal is really to boost that subscriber base, to provide some more content for you guys. But as always, I'm open to suggestions. So like, subscribe, comment, give me suggestions on what I can do better for you. I'll have better sound quality, new microphone as we come into the new year as well. I just want to keep talking about cinema. It's the art form that I love most, and I love the entire community of folks on YouTube that love it as well. So if I don't see you until 2025, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. This has been C Squad Cinema, and I'll see you next time.